Camcorder Cameron here. So I just left the theater. I watched Sean Baker's latest film, Anora A, and I'm here to discuss it with you guys. So basically, I loved it. If you've seen any of Sean Baker's other films and like them, I highly recommend you go see this one. If you're not familiar with Sean Baker, you should still go see this because it's just flat out good. Like, it's got everything you want in a movie. It's hilarious. Our audience was laughing. I was cackling through the whole movie. And it also has a lot of juicy drama and some very, very honest characters that just feel very real. It's good. Go see it, you guys. So let me just start by saying Mikey Madison killed it. This is her movie. Hopefully this is gonna put her in a lot of future projects because she has really just proved herself in so many ways. Like, there's nothing she can't do. I've loved her in everything I've seen her in before. My favorite part of hers before this is definitely her part in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's great in that, but she's great in everything. She really, really, really embodies this character. She has the confidence, she has like the grit, the toughness, the sophistication. She's just absolutely beautiful. Her dancing in this movie is great. I've loved seeing her talk about on TikTok a lot. She's been doing interviews for the press tour of this movie, and she's just been talking about all the dance classes she had to take for this movie and how it's really given her an appreciation for the strength of exotic dancers, because it's not easy work, and she does an excellent job. She looks like a freaking pro. She really does.
It is so challenging to pole dance. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
She is just amazing. I love her character, Anora. She prefers to be called Annie, so that's what I'll call her. She is just so spicy but sweet. Like, she really is just a lovable girl, and you root for her the whole time. You want to see her have her Cinderella story. She has a lot of self-respect, and if she feels like you're not respecting her, you know, she's not afraid to tell you. She's not afraid to throw out some fighting words to stand up for herself, and every time she does, as an audience, you're just completely under her spell and so proud of her, and at least I was. I was just completely enamored, not only by her beauty, but just by her persona. So another standout performance aside from Mikey Madison that I want to mention is Yura Borisov. I've never heard of him before, but he did a wonderful, wonderful job in this film. He plays bodyguard type character. He is a very like tough, stone cold guy. His name is Igor, but he says that it translates to warrior, and he certainly embodies the warrior because not only is he big and burly, but he's just like very stone cold. Like, his face is very tough. He's not one to really smile much, but the actor, he does such a good job in the role because he's not just playing like a tough guy. Like, he has so many different looks. Like, he can just convey a whole world of inner thoughts through the way his eyes communicate to you. I just love all the information I got from him throughout the movie without him ever having to say a word. He's spectacular, and I hope to see him in another movie soon because I'd never seen him before. I'll say this last thing before getting into spoilers. The general vibe of the movie is very fast paced. I would call it a thriller, but it's not a thriller because it's not really like a scary movie, but it's a thriller in the sense that your heart is just like constantly not getting a break through the whole movie. You're just swept up in all of the drama. And I don't want the word drama to deter you because it's not like a super devastating movie that's gonna leave you feeling just horrible afterwards. It's a fun movie. I laughed more than anything else, but it does at the end make you feel more somber. I don't know how to talk about movies without spoiling it, so it's time for me to get into spoilers. So let's talk about this movie in 3 acts. The first act is so much fun. It's this long montage of dreamlike escapism, and it's truly just a blast to watch. The movie it reminds me the most of in the first act is Spring Breakers, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you've ever seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just like the party montaging and all the fun stuff is what we get in the beginning. So she meets this son of a Russian oligarch, this young man at the club one day, and he sort of sweeps her off her feet. He is totally playing into the pretty woman fantasy that I'm sure every sex worker has.
It must be difficult to let go of something so beautiful.
So what happened after he climbed up the tower and rescued her?
She rescues him right back.
We're seeing Annie get courted by Ivan pretty much. To her, he starts out as just another customer who is awesome and lives in a mansion, but she doesn't really expect that much from him. He's a man-child. Not even a man-child. He says he's 21, which in boy world really is like 18. So he's legal, but he is just very childlike. He loves his video games, he loves to party, and that's it. He has people clean his house for him. Like, you never see him make his bed or do one adult thing ever. I guess besides go to the strip club, which is something only adults can do. Other than that, he's a fool, but she sees him for the dollar sign.
15. Cash up front.
He wants her, and he wants to be exclusive with her. Once he gets her to be his escort, he doesn't want her going back to work. He wants to lock it down, and that he does. He asks to be her girlfriend, which, again, I'm talking about Pretty Woman. It's the Pretty Woman dream where it's like, hey, I'll pay you this much for a week if you pretend to be my girlfriend. It's that trap. She's not stupid. Like, she's not ready to believe that she's got him. And at the end of the montage of Act 1, he asks her to marry him. And this is a really beautiful scene where she's like, no, get out of here. Like, don't even joke with me about that. And as a viewer, my stomach was like rising up in my chest when he asked to marry her, because it's clear that it's not love. He's just foolish, and he's in limerence, and he likes having sex with her. He just wants to possess her pretty much. And she is like, I'm not stupid. What, you're gonna marry me? No, you're not. And eventually he convinces her, because he does seem very sincere. He's like, wait, this is making me nervous. Let me speak in Russian. Will you marry me? I'm so serious right now. And she's like, okay, buy me a big ring.
3 carats.
What about 4?
And he does. So they're married, and she leaves Vegas, she goes home, she quits her job, she gets to be like, suck it, to all of her jealous coworkers. I get to go live in my mansion, bye. And she has this one enemy at the strip club who's so jealous of her, and she's like, I give it 2 weeks. I love Annie's response to that jealousy. She's not like vicious back. She's just so happy, and she feels elated, and like she's finally won it all. So she's not even listening to the haters. She's not even like giving her the time of the day to be upset about her saying our marriage is only gonna last 2 weeks or whatever. She's Cinderella finally moving in with the prince in the palace, and that is pretty much the end of Act 1. And now we enter Act 2, which is a slapstick comedy thriller. So she's in her mansion, still being an escort. She may have that ring on her finger, but I mean, she is still putting in the work, okay? And that's what I love about this movie, is it just kind of calls into question the power dynamics in a marriage like that. Even if she wasn't a sex worker, like, he's always going to have more power than her, because he's literally wealthy. And if at any point she's not performing up to his standards, he could just divorce her and move on. And you very much see, like, okay, she's made it. She's wed. She's secure. But you never get to see her do anything for fun for her. Like, you don't see her watch TV. She's sitting in his lap watching him play video games. Like, but anyways, Ivan's ridiculously wealthy Russian family catch wind of the rumors that he's married a prostitute in America, and they send out their goonies to go get him under control, figure out if the rumors are true. You see them go through security, and security obviously recognizes them, lets them through. But this scene kind of reads out like a home invasion because you're really seeing it through Annie's perspective. She thinks that this is his house. And so whenever somebody's banging on the door, she's like, what is happening? And whenever her hubby won't let them in, they have a key card. They get in. But it does read like a break-in because he's yelling at them to get out. They're busting in the door. He's trying to close them in the door, but they're pushing through. It's really funny, but as a first-time viewer, you're like, should I be laughing at this or should I be scared for her? Because things escalate so quickly. The Catholic priest is on the phone. He's on the way there. The two Goonies are like, wait. We need to hear from him. He's looking for the marriage certificate. They get the marriage certificate confirmation that he is married to a prostitute. And they're all freaking out. They bust in. And Ivan, he books it. He's like, we gotta go. His parents are coming to America. He just completely checkens out when he hears that. You see the whole flip in him from the moment that they mention, your family knows about this. They're gonna be here tomorrow at noon. He is like no longer whatever persona he was putting on before. This is the real him. He very quickly goes from a man-child to an actual child. He runs. Doesn't even wait for her to get dressed because she's in her underwear. Like, they were literally in the middle of having sex whenever all of this home invasion stuff starts happening. So she's in her t-shirt and her underwear. He's like, we gotta go. And she's like, okay, 1 second, let me put pants on. He couldn't wait 1 second. He goes. She tries to run after him, and the bodyguards just absolutely body her. They won't let her leave. She's fighting them because now she's got like this big man manhandling her. And she's a fighter. And this scene is the scariest scene in the whole movie to me because I didn't know what was going to go down. And I just think that they shot it so perfectly because you're laughing out loud. There's a lot of funny stuff. The priest on the phone, he's just hearing all this on speakerphone. She's cussing them all out. He's cussing her back out. That stuff is all very funny. But also, like, seeing her try and fight back for her life and then just be completely tackled to the ground and then having her hands tied behind her back and then eventually being gagged and tied up. And there's just this one really terrible scene after she punches one of the bodyguards and tries to escape. He tackles her to the ground and he's tying her wrist behind her back and she's like bent over the couch or whatever, and the way that it's shot, you're just like so scared. It's scary because you're like, oh my god, what's about to happen? Like, is he about to rape her? When she's bent over the couch, like the shot of her, seeing her in that position, like you feel her absolute vulnerability and fear in that moment. The reality is that they aren't like bad guys. They're not real Russian mobsters. They're just like some hired Russian-speaking neighbors, pretty much. Like, they're kind of nobodies and they don't want to take things too far, but at the same time, she is beating them up. And every new character that's introduced is like, oh my god, what's going on here? Why are you treating her like this? And then whenever they see how she is, they're very quick to just escalate it further and go crazier. And one of the funniest scenes ever is when she just gives up fighting, but she screams. And she screams, rape! Rape! And she's screaming it like you can't even tell what she's saying. And they're like, what is she screaming? Rape? Oh my god, gag her. Like, that scene is so funny. And it like zooms in on her mouth every time they're like, don't scream. And then it zooms in on her mouth and they're screaming back at her. Hilarious. I'm so glad it didn't actually get too violent and she didn't actually get really hurt, or it would have spoiled the whole comedy of it because it was horrifying. It's always going to be horrifying for me to see a woman get manhandled like that. But the movie didn't take it too far, and I think it would be more fun for me to rewatch that scene knowing in the back of my mind that everything's going to be okay. She's not about to be violated, you know. So if Act 1 is like her fairy tale dream manifested, Act 2 is her denial of that dream not being real, because everybody's telling her, you don't know who you married a boy, this isn't real, he used you, and you're gonna have to get divorced whether you want to or not. You're getting a divorce. And she's just so not believing that. She doesn't want to believe that for sure, but also she doesn't believe it because These are a bunch of strangers she's never met before. She's like, I'm only gonna believe whenever I talk to my husband. Thank you very much. Because he is my husband and our marriage is real and he's not gonna agree to that. And Act 2 consists of them mostly just running all over town looking for him. Igor, the guy who tied her up and tackled her to the ground, she's just kind of stuck with him in the backseat of the car the whole time. And it becomes very, 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 very obvious, and this is what I was talking about with his facial expressions. It becomes super obvious he's got a bit of a crush on her. Like, from the moment they leave the mansion and they're in the car together and he tries to apologize, I was like, oh my god, he is so in love with her. Like, he just thinks she's pretty and he wants her to forgive him so he can feel better about himself. But she is like over it. She's got total, like, you're my enemy now. Don't talk to me. Can you tell him not to talk to me? Thank you. They're talking to all his friends, and you can kind of see how much she's ingratiated herself with his circle of friends and everyone, because as soon as all of Ivan's friends see her, they're like, oh my god, like, hey, and they're so happy to see her, and they're like, are you okay? Like, who are these guys that you're with? And she's over it. She's like, yeah, but have you seen my husband? This is a family emergency. I need my husband. Thank you. Nobody knows where he is. I knew he would be at her original strip club because it's like the one place she's not going because she refuses to. She doesn't want to have to step back into her old place of work that she quit for a better life. She doesn't want to have to go back there. But surely that's where he freaking is because he's just a loser. And worst of all, I would say it's the ultimate betrayal, but it's not his ultimate betrayal, is he goes in there plastered out of his mind and sleeps with the enemy. He doesn't actually have sex with her, but he goes and gets a private dance from her enemy. He wouldn't know it's her enemy because he's so narcissistic. He does not care about her. She's like nothing to him. And it becomes clear when he just stumbles into the strip club, gets a random dance with her enemy, who is just so pleased to be the one that he chooses, and they finally get him. He's so wasted and incoherent, he can't stay conscious. They're driving him to the courthouse. She can't even get a sentence out of him. So she's like, he doesn't understand what's going on. Like, do you understand, baby, do you understand they want us to divorce? He doesn't get it. He's just like rolling his head. He's so drunk. They spent all night looking for him. So it's been a day at this point. First thing when the courthouse opens, they go to the court. And so it's been a whole day without her having any sleep. They're in the courthouse and he's too drunk for anything to happen. But they find out anyways that they can't get a divorce there because they got married in Las Vegas. So they're like, great, we have to fly there. So they're at the airport. His parents have landed. Bum, bum, bum. Act 3's theme is facing reality. She's no longer in the denial stage. She's woke up and smelled the roses. She's so like charming, and she's like so still just believing like, okay, if I meet your mom, she's gonna understand like that we're in love or whatever. She meets the mom. The mom does not even care to like listen to her at all. Her husband, Ivan, is now sobered up, and he sees his parents, and he's talking to his mom, and he's like, oh, Mom, is this the new collection of designer clothes? Oh, wow. And that's when Annie really starts to see. She really starts to see who he really is, because when they go and get on the private family jet, she's like, just talk to me, like, what's going on? Like, we're not actually getting a divorce. And he's like, you haven't got it yet? I'm leaving you. This was nothing. We're done here. Just walks back on the plane, and she is in shock. Once he says the words, we're done, she's like in a freeze state, and she's on the plane overhearing him argue with his family, and he calls her like an escort or a prostitute, and he had never called her that before, and she totally didn't think that that's how he saw her, but like that's like what woke her up out of her shock spell. Once she heard him say that she was a prostitute, she got the whole picture. She finally realized, like, he didn't even love me. He was just using me because I'm a prostitute and he wants to make his family mad. And then the rage takes over. She goes up there, she yells at him, sits back down. Igor's still trying to sweeten her up, so he gives her a shot. She wants to get a lawyer, by the way, which I thought was a really good idea. There was a line where she was like, I didn't sign a prenup I can get a lawyer and fight you and take half of everything. But just the threat from the mom alone was enough for her to not even try to get a lawyer. The mom was like, if you do that, we're going to take everything from you. Your car, your house, like literally everything. Really, they can do that. They can just bleed her out like in courts because they're so rich and powerful. They have all the money in the world at their disposal. So really, I mean, that's believable. She doesn't even try. She goes in there and she wants a divorce at this point because she sees him for the little boy that he is. She signs the divorce papers, and there's the brilliant scene when the mom, the dad, they're there for it. They're in the office with the lawyer signing the papers, and the mom's like, oh, is that my scarf you're wearing? And she's like, oh, you want the scarf? Take it. And she throws the scarf at the mom, throws her super expensive Russian coat at him, you know, mouths off. She's like, you're a child, you're pathetic, you're a coward. I'm done here, leaves. And the whole time, the dad is just like laughing. Like the mom's pissed and the dad is just having the time of his life, like hysterically laughing about this. And I think that response is so brilliant because it just goes to show like how much the father does not respect his son or take any of it seriously. Like it's all just a theater show to him or something. And if I was like in her position, I would be so mad at him laughing because it's belittling. It really is to be laughed at whenever you're showing genuine rage. Everything she thought that she's worked for is now just being ripped out from under her. She's a tough girl. She's a whole lot tougher than I am. I would be sobbing. Like I would be sobbing when I was tied up. I would be sobbing when we're running around the city and I can't find my husband. I would be sobbing when he's denying my phone call. Like I would be so sad. You don't see her cry once. And at this point, it's been like 2 whole days without sleep now. I mean, me just like not getting enough sleep one night is enough to make me weepy. Like she's such a strong person and she's over it. She leaves. They're like, you can stay the night in the mansion, then it's out for you. Her chauffeur, Igor, stays the night in the mansion with her. And this is interesting stuff because it's very clear he's got the hots for her. They're alone together. She's divorced and single now. And they have some banter while they're watching TV. There's sort of like an enemies to lovers sort of thing going on, even though as a viewer, you don't want it to happen. But they're kind of going back and forth, bickering in a flirty way about silly things like name meanings and his birthday. And he's not a rich man. He like lives with his grandma or whatever. So he talks about that or whatever. Before she goes to bed, she's telling him off and she's like, if that other guy wasn't there, you would have raped me while you had me tied up on the couch. And he's like, what? Like, no, I wouldn't have. And she's like, you wouldn't have raped me. And he's like, no. And she's like, why? And he's like, what? What do you mean? Why wouldn't you have raped me? He's so flabbergasted by the question. His response is, because I'm not a rapist. And she's like, no, it's because you're gay, pretty much, and walks off. But there's so much subtext, and it's honestly kind of funny. It's, first of all, jarring to just hear people talk about rape so blatantly like that. But also at the same time, like, she has a point. The camera showed us her bent over the couch, tied up with him on top of her. Like, he literally looked like he was about to rape her. He could have. He didn't, but he could have. And it's sort of like her speaking to her fears as having this another man like in control, and her not expecting anything more than what everybody wants from her as a sex worker, which is sex. And it's almost like this weird thing that when he says that he wouldn't have raped her, she's like, oh, you wouldn't have raped me? It's almost like, oh, you don't want to me, like that sort of thing. By speaking to it, she can kind of like take her power back from that moment when she was so helpless and pinned against the couch. Like, she just doesn't believe that, I guess, a straight man wouldn't have taken that opportunity, probably, because she sees more than anybody the lengths that male sexuality goes to. Like, she probably dances all over married men like every day in the club. I don't know, it was interesting. I'm wondering what you guys would think about that scene. So it's the next day. She gets her $10,000. That's all she gets for being tricked into marrying a man, having her heart broken, being completely humiliated at her former place of work. You know, she's being driven home to her house, which isn't a bad house by any means. She's not living in the slums, but it is like obviously a low income household because she lives right by the subway, and it's just all you hear when you're in there. Just going back to nothing pretty much. And Igor drops her off, carries in her bags. He's actually pocketed the ring, surprisingly. This was a surprise to all of us. He's like, here, the 4-carat ring that they ripped off of her finger because they were going to give that money back to the family. He pocketed it. He's like, don't tell, but you can have this. This is the ending. This is such an interesting moment because you see a million emotions pass her face whenever she's handed the ring. It's like a gesture of kindness, I guess. And I think she sees past her hatred for this man, for what he did to her. She's like seeing him as another man that wants to impress her. And she takes control of the situation by going over into his lap and seducing him into intercourse. They are doing it, and it's sort of like awkward because whenever she's on top of him, he's just like not having any response. I had a moment where I was like, wait, is he gay? But I think even if you are into it, like you're just watching a desperate woman like in a very sad and fragile situation. So he's like not doing much. Maybe he's a little bit surprised, but then he goes in and he tries to kiss her, and things turn sour very quickly. She's sort of like is very repulsed and upset at him trying to kiss her. She's trying to pull away. He's trying to like hold her in physically, and it's really scary because you're like, oh my god, he is raping her, because that's just the nature of sex. Is the second you take away your consent, it's non-consensual. It all happens so fast, like her having sex with him leaning in to have the kiss, and her pulling away, and him pulling her down, and you're like, oh my god, what's happening? And he just pulls her into a hug, and she cries, and that's the end of the movie. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful ending, because no, I don't ship him. I don't think that they're gonna have a relationship after this, like, but I do think in my eyes he's proved himself as like a man, a real man, unlike that Ivan guy. Like, he has respect for her. He stands up for her. He sees in that moment that she just needs like a shoulder to cry on. And for me, it was just like such a gulping breath of relief to see her like break down, because she's been so strong the whole movie. Honestly, I think that she just had a little bit of Stockholm syndrome there at the end. She's probably learned being a sex worker that even if you're not a sex worker, I feel this way sometimes as a woman, as like men only want you for one thing. It's a multiple interpretation ending. You can believe whatever you want about why she did what she did at the end. I believe she did it because he offers her the ring. She sees it as some kind of kindness, and she feels the need to like repay that. That's my payment. That's what he wants from me. Like, let me go do that. I don't think that she was actually seeing it as like a workplace sort of thing, but I do think that it was almost like autopilot for her, and she was also just going through so much. Like, that's her way of saying thanks. Sean Baker really wrote a well-rounded character, Anora. She's so complex and beautiful and tough and multifaceted. We never see her be vulnerable. We never really get to see her inner thoughts, her inner turmoils. So it's great to see that at the end, to see her be sad. Honestly, she was thriving in her club before she met him, and this man just wrecked her life by fooling her. And I am so pissed at Ivan. I hate him. I don't know who the actor is. He did pretty good in that role. It's like, I don't have anything to complain, but I don't even want to talk about the actor that played him because I hate his character so much. Like, evil coward, bottom of the shoe. He should just go marry his mom, because clearly that's the only woman that's ever gonna matter to him. This movie did, like, the dance montage kind of reminded me of Tangerine. Literally, there's a character in Tangerine named Cinderella. Anora herself said that Cinderella is her favorite princess, and she's going all over town looking for her partner who cheated on her. So it kind of has that same structure of wandering the city and running into all these different characters. Anyways, I'm getting off on tangents now, but hopefully my ramblings made some sense to you guys, and I just want to talk about this movie with you guys. I really liked it. So check out my comments so we can chat, and my Patreon members and channel members, thank you for all you do for me. Thank you so much. Camcorder Cameron signing out.